So this is a video that I've really debated for a while on whether or not I would do it. Then I saw something online the other day, and well, let's just say now I have to do this video. I got to get this off my chest. So this is a lesson I learned when I was an MSF instructor. Some of the weeks I would teach 2, sometimes 3 new rider classes in a week. And over time you get a pretty good feel for the types of students that are going to come through the class. When I was teaching a class, one of the first things that we would do to kick off the classroom session was to introduce ourselves. I'd tell the students who I was, and then I'd ask them to share their names, why they were here in the class, and what they ride or want to ride. Those are pretty basic questions, but you can learn a whole lot about the person who's taken the class just by hearing the answers to that. Very frequently in class, there would be this guy who would kind of sit off to the side of the class, and his introduction would sound something like this. Hey, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, hey, what's up? You know, my birth name is Mike, but people who know me and love me call me Squid, so just call me Squid this weekend. You know, I've been riding, 40 years, 50 years. Ever since I could walk, I've been riding a motorcycle. You know, I got a ticket the other day for not having a license, and I'm just tired of the cops hassling me, having to look over my shoulder, so I'm just here to get this taken care of, so I can get that check box on my driver's license and not be hassled anymore. But I'll be glad to help anybody out if you got any questions along the way. If you want to hear from a real biker, you know, I'm here to help the coach out if that's all right with you.
Well, thanks for the offer, but, you know, I'll probably take this one. I think I got it.
All right. So, yeah, we'll work together on this, and, you know, you got any questions, let me know.
Yeah, I'd say 50% of the time that guy was a decent rider, and 50% of the time he quit talking and offering to help. By the time wheels started rolling on motorcycles, and he realized he wasn't quite as good as he thought he once was. You know, they may have been fairly competent riding between stoplights, but you ask them to stop a motorcycle right here, or make a turn here within this boundary, or do a U-turn in the space allotted, all using proper technique. And a lot of those so-called experts struggled even passing the new rider class. You know, I had a guy introduce himself one time talking about the cross-country ride he had just completed, and by the end of the class I realized it was a miracle that this guy survived long enough to take the class. Now, I often preferred a brand new rider to these types of riders because a new rider didn't have so many bad habits to break. They were more willing to learn because they didn't think they had all the answers. Meeting riders like this showed the importance of finding good mentors when it comes to riding skills and motorcycles. There are a whole lot of so-called experts out there. Some of them mean well, and they're just misinformed. When it comes to life, and especially when it comes to riding motorcycles, who you listen to matters. Where you develop your skills and learn proper technique matters. The habits you build, the habits you ride with, the road skills you develop, and the road strategy you employ, all of that matters. It has a huge impact on your ability to grow quicker as a rider and to ride better once you gain some experience. Because if you start with bad habits and bad advice, it becomes much harder to break those habits later on down the road. When it comes to social media, I'm a reluctant social media participant. In fact, if it were not such a big part of what I do here on MCrider, my participation on social media platforms would be greatly diminished. I started MCrider primarily because I was called to do so, and I saw a need, and a need that I could fill. It was never about building a name for myself. It was never about getting fame. Social media, on the other hand, requires getting noticed to be successful. If you want to lose some faith in humanity, get heavily involved in social media like I have to, and you'll realize how many squids are bumbling their way through life. Realizing that there are a whole lot of squids in the world is one thing, but social media gives a bullhorn to all those squids in all subjects of life, even when it comes to how to ride a motorcycle. There's a whole lot of truth in the saying that common sense is anything but common these days, and social media has become the Wikipedia of our lack of common sense online. The problem that social media creates is it's not the best opinions that get attention. It's not the wisest of speakers who filter their way to the top of the conversation, It's often the squids of the world who command the most attention on social media. Getting followers is more about saying or doing something outrageous or salacious than providing good, solid content in a respectful manner. So if you've ever thought about building a huge motorcycle following on YouTube, let me give you the secret to success. Have a thumbnail for your video with a rider crashing their motorcycle, then take a selfie of yourself with a shocked look on your face. You know, something like, if you can find a girl in a bikini crashing the motorcycle, you'll get bonus points for that. In the video, show multiple riders crashing, play some crazy sound effects when they crash, and then invite your audience to laugh along with you as you present more and more videos of people doing stupid stuff on two wheels. In no time, you'll be a YouTube star and thousands will subscribe to see what you have to offer. You know, that's just the nature of social media. The more outrageous you are, the louder you are, the more you live on the edge, the larger your audience will be. So I've been fairly reluctant to do this video, even though the idea has been with me for a while. And I'm going to try to do this as respectfully as I can and still call out the squid sitting in the corner.
Oh yeah, hey man, I'm listening. Gotcha.
So I've introduced the problem to you. Now let me share a post with you that I saw online recently in a Facebook group that's designed for new motorcycle riders. I'm even going to blur out the names of the participants because what they say is far more important than who said it. But let me bring this bit of wisdom on screen and we can all read it together. So it says, how often do folks use their front brakes? No one I've met that rides motorcycles have ever used them. And my motorcycle doesn't even have them. Opinions? Some of the folks I know have ridden for many years. Man, a whole lot can be gleaned from this post. First off, if you're into spelling, you already know that there's a difference between brakes and brakes. I know they sound the same, but there's some not so subtle differences between the two. But let me put it into a sentence for you to help clarify. Brakes is what happens to your motorcycle when you crash it because you failed to use the front brakes when you needed to stop in a hurry. Okay, we got that out of the way. Now, I'm not a huge spell check guy myself. I know my spelling is horrible at times, but some of you wouldn't be able to sleep tonight if I didn't address that first. So this writer starts with an honest question, who on here uses their front brakes? He goes on to say that he has never met a rider who uses them. And just for the record, he and I've never met. And his motorcycle does not even have them. He then asked for opinions. Well, yes, I do have an opinion on this subject. He follows it up with validation for his opinion by stating that some of the folks he knows have ridden for many years.
Hey, what's up everybody? Rock and roll, baby. You know, man, you do have to be careful who you listen to these days. You know, experienced riders like us, they can help you guys out a whole lot. Yep, listen to that guy. He knows what he's talking about. Yep, rock and roll, baby.
And you might say I'm making too big of a deal of this. This is just one uninformed rider who has a bunch of friends who is equally uninformed. But here's where social media raises its ugly head. At the time I was preparing this video, this post had 690 likes, 2.2 thousand comments, and 8 people who thought so much of the wisdom contained in this post that they shared it with their riding friends. 2.2 thousand comments are a lot of comments, and let's look at some of what people had to say about this. Now, I have gone through and cherry-picked some of the comments to share here. Many of the responses to this nonsense were either totally correct or mostly correct in their response to use of the front brakes on a motorcycle. But let's say 10%, which I would say is might be accurate of the comments were representative of what I just shared with you. That's a whole lot of uninformed riders. There were 2.2 thousand comments. That leaves about 220 riders who support this foolishness and have further promoted it by sharing it with their friends. In case you're wondering about the use of front brakes on a motorcycle, yes, using the front brakes is a mandatory part of riding a motorcycle safely and with skill. Just go on YouTube and do a search for MCrider brakes, and you'll find a whole lot of videos where we talk about this subject and how to properly use your brakes on your motorcycle. This post alone on Facebook is reason enough to give me concern, but there's another reason why this post gets under my skin so much. I used to be an active member of this group, and I could write a long, detailed explanation on Facebook in response to this post, usually on Facebook on my phone, and long, detailed responses and iPhones don't necessarily get along. Or I could explain that the front brake is the most powerful device on the motorcycle, that it could be up to 95% of the stopping power on a motorcycle. We could talk about emergency braking, normal braking, trail braking, all using the front brake of your motorcycle. Or I could post a link to a video where I could demonstrate proper braking technique and discuss the subject in much more detail than I could ever write in a response. In fact, that's what I used to do. I posted a few MCrider videos to this group, maybe 4 or 5 videos that were a direct answer to the questions that people asked in the group, and I got banned for posting this by the admins of the groups because they said it was self-promotion, even though the videos were always a direct answer to a question that one of their members raised, one of their new rider members. No warning, just got banned. I didn't appeal the ban and didn't even argue against it. It's their group and they can do what they want to with it. I went on about my business for the most part and ignored what was going on in the group. Then one of my subscribers informed me that their post was not approved and it was removed from the site because they linked to MCrider. This subscriber did this totally on their own. I didn't request it or have any knowledge that it was even happening, but they got banned for it as well. Again, it's their site. They're free to do what they want to with it. But when a group admin goes out of their way to keep good training materials that are direct answers to the questions of their members away from their new rider members, they're making their primary goals obvious. They are more about building a social media following than they are providing good training and solid advice to their members. There is so much noise on social media, and the post that we're talking about here is a perfect example. A misinformed rider thinks the front brakes are not necessary, and they get 2.2 thousand responses. Some of those responses were good advice, but there was so much noise in the answers that it's hard to find the correct answer. And no matter what you believe to be the correct answer on the subject, you could find several opinions in the responses to validate your beliefs. This brings us to full circle. It's important who you listen to. It's important who you take advice from. I don't pretend to be the only source of good rider advice online. There are several good options these days for sound motorcycle training materials. And just off the top of my head, Jerry Palladino provides excellent training materials. I really like the videos released by Canyon Chasers and many others. But ultimately, it's up to you, especially if you're a new rider, to find good advice and opinions online. There are a whole lot of squids out there that will provide opinions that sound reasonable, and they'll present it with a whole lot of passion, but it's up to you to weed through the information and find the good advice. It's one of the reasons why I truly love the forums on MCrider and the people who contribute such amazing riding advice there. We got several riding instructors and fantastic riders who contribute tried and true motorcycle advice on the forums of MCrider. There are no bans on sharing videos from other creators. We all watch them, we discuss them, and we learn what we need to from them. There is much more strength in unity than everyone trying to create their own little media empire. The goal for the members of MCrider is to help us all become better, more informed riders, and that'll never happen if the primary objective is building a social media empire at the exclusion of listening to the advice and experience of other riding instructors. I hope you have a great week. Be wise about who you listen to. ask questions, read between the lines. And if you like what we're doing here on MC Rider, you can support the effort at mcrider.com/member. Till next week, this is Kevin with MC Rider, and I'll see you on the road.